We have seen over the last quarter inflows coming into the hedge funds. And these inflows is coming after 6 quarters of outflows. So the macro environment for hedge funds is changing, and in terms of them getting assets, performance ticking up a little bit. And I think this is mainly due to the fact that the macro environments around the economy is changing. So you have central banks being more active than ever. The policies are divergent. You also have governments changing in a way that can create opportunities for particular hedge fund managers, especially for macro managers. Populist governments going to Italy and in other parts of the world, like in the US. This whole ecosystem is creating opportunities for certain type of managers, and especially discretionary macro are taking advantage of it. So I think this is why the industry is moving into that direction, and this positive aspect will keep going, and hedge funds will keep seeing these inflows, in particular due to these elements. Yes, in terms of, if you look at what is changing in terms of technology and also new products development, you can argue that artificial intelligence and the rise to passive is one of the second main reason why hedge funds industry need to reinvent themselves. If you look at the asset that is growing into the ETFs and passive, tells you a story of how the alpha is now becoming more valuable than ever. In particular, it is very difficult to find alpha, and what many years ago was called alpha, now we call it factors, or smart beta, alternative beta. So hedge funds need to reinvent themselves in the way they approach the clients and the way they structure strategies themselves. So in the industry, you need to have new challenges, and hedge funds need to reinvent themselves in creating those strategies to capture the true alpha. Investors are becoming more and more selective for what they're actually paying, and I think artificial intelligence and machine learning will help in that. So both systematic traders and discretionary macro will need to use more artificial intelligence and machine learning to make sure that they will capture the right alpha. And then the funds that will capture the alpha will get paid. And so the industry will grow in that direction. So hedge funds have been using ETF for years, and the use they're doing it is growing and growing. One of the main reasons why they use ETFs is to get exposure to specific asset class. It can be fixed income asset class, it can be equity asset class. And the way they capture exposure is either on the long side or on the short side. If you look at the data in the US, 150 billion is the gross exposure of US ETFs that hedge fund owns. 80% of that is on the short side. So that tells you a story on how they use it in particular, because they use it for hedging purposes, for sector trading, index trading, high yield exposure. So they capture that type of exposure using ETFs, where the future sometimes is not as competitive as the ETF. Also, we're seeing that the ETF pricing is going down and down, and that is actually becoming very competitive versus the future. If you look at the S&P 500, for example, we can see that in a year, 85 basis point is the difference price between the ETF versus the future. And ETF is sometimes less expensive than the future by that amount. So hedge funds obviously are smart, and they can capture that our performance versus the product, and they can capture that using ETFs. So that is the reason why we're seeing more and more hedge funds piling into that. And also the credit is one of the big asset growth that we are seeing for hedge funds using that. High yield, bank capital, emerging markets. This is all products where hedge funds can express their views at a cheap cost. Well, it's been fabulous so far. This is the second year in a row that I come to the GAIM, and the quality of the people, the panel, is a good way of meeting investors and hedge funds and network with like-minded people. For us, it's been very good to understand what the industry is doing and tell about the industry what we're doing on the ETF side. So it's always a pleasure.